Chapter 6. The Mopheads' time in Amazonia had led her to become like their former home, called Desirant. Amazonia had started to become sick. Rubbish was left all over the place, and no one would ever thank the land for all the food that it grew for them. This was so very different from the natural rhythm and mutual respect the Amazonians had with the land in the past. Eventually, Amazonia became so dirty that the air was smelly and grey, the water went brown, and even the birds stopped singing. So many animals had decided to run away. They loved Amazonia so much, and it broke their hearts to see her suffer, but they wanted to go somewhere else to find peace. Thousands of trees had been cut, flowers trampled and killed. What a difference in such a short space of time. This did not seem to bother the king and the Mopheads as they went on their daily routines of destruction. But it did bother them when the land stopped producing food and the water was no longer drinkable. The king was furious. He instructed the Mopheads to gather all the Amazonians and all his folk from Desirant so he could address them all. One cold grey morning, everyone collected to hear the king's address. He stood on a large platform in front of his nearly built castle. The wind was blowing, and his huge flag thrashed above him as his squeaky voice carried on the air. "Your land was fine not so long ago. You must know how to fix the problem, and you will fix this problem. Otherwise, there will be trouble." The king turned around in a fury and walked into the castle, leaving everyone bewildered. They had no idea what to do. Neither the wise Amazonians nor the dense Mopheads knew about the crystal caves or the dwarves that worked so hard to maintain them, which contributed to the health of the land. They did not realise that the lack of love, happiness and respect for the environment had meant the crystals had stopped energising the land and were no longer helping in the production of their food and maintaining crystal clear waterways. Siegfried was the wise elder responsible for all the dwarves. He was the overseer of all the work that had to be done in the caves, as well as being counsel to those in his clans that had any problems. He was part of a long tradition where sons and daughters were born to his family line were taught from an early age the wisdom of the caves. When one passed from this world to another, the next in line would take the role of wise leader and caretaker. Dwarves had been the custodians of crystals and gems throughout the ages, and Siegfried understood so well about the energy of the beautiful crystal beings and the caves that they inhabited. The crystals beneath Amazonia, like other crystal caves in other parts of the planet, held the wisdom of the ages and had a frequency and a vibrational energy that helped the land and its fertility. Siegfried was a humble dwarf, but it was not for him to work so much with the physical chores of the caves. He was dressed well in comparison to the rest of the dwarf clan, who laboured hard during their working day. He always wore a green check jacket with pockets that had folds on the top and dark brown trousers that came down to just above his knees. But like the other dwarfs, he would never consider wearing shoes or boots. Bare feet allowed the energy from the earth and the body of a dwarf to meld into each other. The connection with the earth kept them balanced, nourished, and connected to Amazonia and the whole planet of mystery. Siegfried was aware that things were not right above him, as the crystal caves had stopped glowing. That evening, he took the long walk down to a special private chamber with a fire torch to light the way, as he wanted more insight as to what had occurred above him. Inside the chamber was a deep underground spring that would bubble up into a rock pool. Only the wise elder was allowed in here. Siegfried, as all the elders before him, was a seer. He could look into the water and see what was happening. He would focus on what he wanted to know, and the answer would be shown to him. Siegfried walked along and quietly stood in front of the pool. His eyes grew large and his frown deepened as he saw the destruction that had occurred above him. Holding his chin and chewing his lip, Siegfried rolled his eyes around in his head. What was to be done? He called a meeting of the clan and explained in his wise way what was happening. The response was one of anger, which he quickly calmed. "This is not the way. I will seek counsel with Rook and Owl, who live above us, and we will address this problem with love." He stood there for a while and just emanated peace and calmness until everyone was calm and quiet again. Siegfried reassured everyone. "Now all go back to your homes and share food and drink. I do not want you to worry. Instead, use your energy for the good, send love to the situation, and picture everything being well." Siegfried then went on his way, and everyone did as they were asked, and trusted that their wise leader would find a solution to the problem. Siegfried and the rest of the dwarves were not the only ones who wanted change. The animals, and all the magical elementals, trees, flowers, the air, and water were just a few of those living on the land that could not believe what was happening to their home. Eventually, they started to talk among themselves about how they might bring about change. Siegfried ate a meal with his wife Eleanor and explained what he was going to do. He was to leave the next morning to find Rook and Owl. They had been friends for years, as their families had been connected throughout the ages. "Would you like me to come with you?" Eleanor asked with a worried resonance in her voice. Eleanor was a beautiful dwarf with the softest of faces, warm rounded cheeks and beautiful blue eyes, with soft locks of hair falling to her shoulders. Siegfried smiled at his wife. They had been married for nearly 70 years and they loved each other so very much. Siegfried gave her a big hug and smiled into her soul. "It's okay, Ellie. I need you here." Ellie was also known for her wisdom and helped support the clan, but her role was that of a healer and midwife to the dwarf kingdom. "Okay, Siegfried, just be careful." After climbing out of the underground caves and an evening walk, he arrived at Old Owl's, a beautiful ancient tree. The two of them were the best of friends, and Old Owl really was old, and he was a little deaf, but he saw Siegfried coming a mile off. He flew to meet with him, and both were happy to have met again, even though the circumstances were not as they would like them. Owl heard of the troubles in the crystal caves and was concerned about how much the trouble had spread. They both agreed there was no time to waste and that they needed to find Rook. "So where is Rook these days?" he asked Old Owl. "Well, he's a little everywhere. After his own tree was cut down by the mopheads, his family flew off to find a safe place to rehome. Now Rook travels between there and here, aware that something needs to be done about the mopheads. We all have a feeling that something will happen, but as yet, up until you arriving, we have not been sure of how or when. But it is clear now that whatever is to happen has started." "Do you know where Rook is now?" No, not really," replied Owl with a puzzled look. "The best thing to do is let me sit for a while and send out a telepathic message to him, and I'll see if he picks it up." "That sounds like a plan. I can sit here, make a fire and put on a brew. Do you want some nettle tea, Owl?" No, not really, but thank you for offering. You just do what you need to do, and I will try and connect with Rook." Just then, Rook flew in. "Whoa, that was quick work," said Siegfried. "No, not really. I had not even started." "Hey, Siegfried, my friend, how are you? Oh my goodness, you're here. It was on my mission plan to come and find you, but it's been so busy with everything that's going on," fluttered Rook. "Yes, it does seem to be a big mess, but not to worry. I have a plan." "Ah, those words are like, well, I can't even think of anything right now that would describe what you've just said, except maybe honey rolling down my throat," laughed Rook. They all started to laugh and then settled down to work on their plan. After hours of deliberation, it was decided that they would call a meeting. A note was written to explain where and when the meeting would take place and made it quite clear that everyone should attend. They also wrote in large writing for everyone to travel in silence to the meeting as so not to alert the mopheads or the Amazonians of their plan. The note was then handed to a tree, and once read, they would pass the note from branch to another tree. The tree would pass the messages down to anyone whom they met along the letter chain, and once someone read the message, they too would pass on the word and pass the message back up to the tree. Rook also instructed the birds and flew around as winged messengers. Within a few hours, everyone was aware of the meeting and gathered 2 hours before sunset the following evening. Everyone had gently walked and quietly walked from their homes to avoid the Amazonians, Mopheads and the king's soldiers. They were very intent to bring about change, although at the moment they had no idea how. The noise level started to rise a little as they began to express their feelings of anger and despair about the situation in which they were living. Siegfried asked a large oak tree to help bring about quiet. He agreed and used his commanding presence to bring about hush. Ahem! Would you all please be quiet so Old Owl, Rook and Siegfried can be heard as they would like to address you? Also, it would be wise not to raise the attention of the Mopheads, so being calm and balanced as you know how would help in so many ways. He then used a few of his branches to stop some young pixies from running around and sat them down on a tree log that was covered in moss. Rook thanked the tree and then proceeded to address the crowd. We are all aware of the changes and destruction to our land, and we all feel that something must be done, and I have discussed this with Owl and Siegfried. Siegfried, from the Crystal Caves, has an idea that may bring about a solution to the problems of our environment. Everyone started to talk among themselves, so the noise level began to rise again. Siegfried raised his voice a little and continued. We will work our magic, but it requires the help of an Amazonian child whose heart is full of pure love and who has some ancient forgotten knowledge within his soul. The crowd began to murmur again, and the level of unease began to rise. Just then, Primrose the fairy arrived. Thank goodness I found you, Rook. As she looked around, she saw that Old Owl and Siegfried were there as well. How amazing that you're all here together. I could have only dreamt this. Truly amazing. I need to find you all, and I've found you all in the same place. Magic is at work, thank goodness. I need help with the young trees, buzzed Primrose. Primrose, calm yourself. We're in the middle of a meeting, said Owl. But what I have to say is important too. Maybe you would like to tell us all what you've come to know, said Siegfried as he tried to calm her down. Primrose went on to explain everything that she had experienced so far with the young trees and the destruction of their families. Everyone was sad to hear of her tale, as it just impacted more upon all that they had experienced already, but Siegfried assured them that their plan would work and all would be well. So Siegfried, where do I find this very large magic tree called Chemini? I need to find him to get the magic wisdom of how to make the trees walk. I told them I'd be back as soon as I could, so we need to be quick. Ah, I can help you with that, but we also need to find this young child who can help with the much larger picture of what is happening as well. What young child and what bigger picture, Siegfried? I need to find the tree. I know of such a child who can help us. A boy, came a voice from the shadows of the forest. Everyone turned to look in the direction of the voice, and then a unison of ah rose as Light the unicorn walked towards them in majestic beauty. His mane was flowing like light-filled water with sparkling silver energy surrounding all of him. Hello, my dear friend. How have you been with your interdimension travels? Inquired Siegfried. Light smiled. I know of the tree that Primrose asks of, and I also know of the child you seek. My kind place the higher light frequencies within this child's lineage and many other children's hearts. We choose one in every kingdom just in case this moment ever arose. It was to ensure that extra help would be available when it was needed, and it was always believed that everyone working together for the good of their planet would help to resolve any problems. "Well, why didn't you come and tell us this before?" shouted out a water nymph. "I understand the place you speak from, but I am not responsible for how our journey unfolds. I am but a part of it, and it is now I am here with the help," spoke Light in a very assured way. Just then, Silas the Strooner moved forward and asked the question that he knew would be answered today. "We asked you before, how is it that these mopheads got here in the first place?" "Yes, yes," came from the crowd. "We've all been thinking on this. No one knows where they came from. We have never seen or heard of the likes of the mopheads in all of our history. So how is it they just arrived here?" asked an old Spricklet, screwing up his wrinkled face and rubbing his long nose. This question is going to be answered, but you all have to open your hearts and minds and let go of the beliefs you have in order for me to be heard. You all see me as a multidimensional being now, and because of the situation at hand, in some way you have just accepted this fact. This is a good thing, but just comprehend for a moment what I have said and realize how much of the unknown you have just accepted. Now let us go a little further. Quite away from here to the west is a place where no one really visits because of the distance and the terrain. Hidden within a forest clearing next to a wild meadow is a stone circle. It is a portal to other worlds. The unicorn cleared his throat and took another deep breath. Light was very aware that what he was saying was a lot for everyone to take in and to believe, but he had to keep them on side with what he was saying, and he did not have much time to do it in. A long, long time ago, there were some elders who lived amongst you, but would not show their true identity. They were here as custodians to you and your land. They would travel through the stargate generated of the stone circle to other lands just like yours, making sure all was well. At one point in history, a battle started, and the beings who were not of the light were intent on coming to many planets, including Amazonia, to claim it for themselves. It was then decided to place a force field around the stone circle which would close the multidimensional portal, or stargate as it's known, to everyone, including the less than light beings who wanted to attack. Before the elders left Amazonia, they placed knowledge within the hearts of a child, which was then passed down to their children's children, but it was held in a way that would only be released in such times as now. Light took another breath. The silence all around was deafening. No one moved or spoke. The most mouths were wide open and everyone's eyes were transfixed on Light. "That's crazy," said a voice. Siegfried appeared next to the water nymph who had just spoken and stared right into his eyes and heart and asked for him to find the truth within and to follow his passion to help bring peace to the land. The nymph looked back at Siegfried and found peace and smiled as he agreed to work with the rest of the group. He was not sure what had just happened to him, but did not wish to dispute or disagree with any of the plan anymore. "But if there was a force field round the portal, why is it that the mopheads have managed to get through?" asked Heather the Bosie. King Atman's grandfather, who is now in spirit, worked with the less than light at great lengths to help his grandchild and his people leave the home in search of a new place to live. But we have no more information than that. What I can tell you is that an intergalactic council has taken on board all my concerns and have interceded to place a new force field around the circle which has an impenetrable coding that is now the sole responsibility of the council. Everyone was so amazed by what they heard. The night was full of magic, from interdimensional unicorns to portals, intergalactic councils. How could the plan fail? "So where do we find the tree?" said Primrose, as she popped up again. Not at all surprised by what just had been spoken. She lived a life of magic every day, and none of it fazed her at all. "I so need the help the trees escape the forest before anything else is done." Primrose flew right up in front of Siegfried's face, looking up into his left eye. Light walked up to Primrose and agreed to help her and asked for everyone to be quiet. Light himself also went very quiet, and the energy around him turned into a rainbow-coloured aura. Next, the tip of his single golden horn extended into the most exquisite vortex, spinning way up into the sky and beyond. Everyone was in awe, but was soon shocked out of that state by the unicorn moving into the vortex and disappearing. "Where does he gone? Where is he gone? Did he not just hear me ask for help? Did he not just agree to help me in the trees? Did he just disappear?" "Yes, where's he gone?" shouted the crowd. "Shh," hushed Siegfried. "You have to keep quiet. We know the mopheads and Amazonians are around. How many times must I ask you to be quiet?" Next, there was an image in the sky. It was like watching a moving picture as the unicorn talked to a large tree. "Hello, Chemini," said Light to the tree. "Ah, hello, my dear friend. It's been such a long time. I knew you would come. You had to. There is so much to put right. I am living with trust that this is all for a reason and all will be well, but it is very testing." Chemini continued to pour his heart out to Light. "It will work out, Chemini. It always does. It's just sometimes things seem to be worse than others, when in reality it's all the same." Chemini smiled. "So, what do we do?" "Firstly, my friend, Primrose the fairy is involved with helping some young trees. She is trying to prevent them from being felled, as they have decided to live through the changes that are occurring in the forest. She has turned them invisible for now, but somehow knows that you have magic help the trees can use. Magic that can help them to walk free." "Yes, I do. They are brave youngsters and will take leadership amongst the rest of the forest as they grow older and wiser. Ask of them to say the following chant. Forever I am a tree, forever I am a tree. The sun shines, the light reigns, together we will be free." Then Primrose will have to take some magic water and place a few drops at the roots of each one who wishes to walk. "You will find the water inside the hole in my body. A silver woodpiper made the hole so long ago, and the water has been kept clean and pure by the worker Silverlights." Light then used his mind's eye to cool the water into his single golden horn. The whole group was still watching the encounter between Chemini and Light from the meeting place, and all they kept saying was, "Ah, ah." It was truly amazing, and they all felt so blessed to be part of what was happening before their very eyes. "So, what else do you require from me?" asked Chemini to Light. "Ah, I am to bring you a boy, an Amazonian boy, with sacred energy within his heart that will work with you to bring about change. I will tell you more when we meet next time." Light thanked Chemini the tree, and then again used his mind's eye to extend the energy vortex from his single horn and disappeared from the picture in the sky back into the meeting place where he had first left. As he arrived back, the image in the sky closed and everyone moved to be closer to him. "So, Primrose, do you have a flask to put this magical water in?" asked Light. "I can conjure one up." As she spun around in the air very fast, golden dust encircled her, and then on the ground in front of Light appeared a violet glass bottle. Ah, well done. Thank you. It's beautiful. Light moved the magical water from his horn into the bottle, and Primrose listened to the words she was to say and commanded herself to remember them well. Primrose, go now to your trees and help them in your special way. Bring them back here with you, but ask them to walk lightly. Tell them to stay away from where the mopheads are working and ensure they are covered with enough dust to guarantee their invisibility. Siegfried then addressed the crowd. My dear friends, Primrose will help the trees and we will go and find the boy. We ask of you to keep faith and love in your hearts and trust all is well. Everyone was so happy that there was a plan, and they all went off to their homes, trusting that all the magic they had witnessed would surely be able to help them and their land.